All right, so this is Alexandr Krasnitvi. I'm sorry if I murdered that name. Um, so basically, I would say right off the bat is there's a couple things going on. The first thing that I see right off the bat is the kind of positioning of everybody, and you've got a square composition, and square compositions are always kind of a hard thing to pull off. So there's going to be a couple things that I'm going to do first. The first thing is we're just going to kind of, oops, not do that. Let's, there we go. Let's turn off snapping here. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of cut out this guy, and with him as a square composition, you'll have to forgive my feline friend here. She's been wanting attention. Um, so I'm just going to kind of cut out really fast. I'm not even going to be precise. I'm just kind of cutting out like so. And all right, we're just gonna go up here, something like that. This is going to be a little bit faster here now. And okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut him out as a separate layer. And the second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into here and we're going to cut this guy out. And like so. So we're just going to kind of really quickly here, just, I'm not even getting precise on this anymore. I'm just going to, okay, so then I'm going to cut this guy out here. Now, the problem with your composition is that if you look at it, if we do rule of thirds, and we're just going to lower my brush here, we've got right about here, right about there, right about there, and right about there. So if you look at these, everything's a little bit out of proportion, okay? And so by simply taking this particular character and just lowering him a little bit, he now becomes a lot more of a centralized figure. And that simple adding him in there works a little bit better. Now, the next thing is putting this guy back here and surrounding that makes him have a little bit more information in there. Then what I'm going to do is we're just going to go in the background here and we're going to kind of fuzz out some of this background like so. And I get what you're trying to do here, and we're just going to kind of continue that, the ribbing, like so, like so. Okay. Now, the next thing, and we'll just add in some of this brush, something like that. Okay, so, and then let's get rid of this guy here. So add some dark in there. Okay, something like that. Maybe a little bit dark streak here. Grab some of this. And oops. This is where we want to go hard brush. Alright. So I'm just adding in the additional ribbing that you're putting in there. And let's add in some of this edge. And you might want to give I would put maybe some pipes in here that are releasing the steam, and that might be something interesting to add in there. And then let's clean up this, add this in there, so on and so forth. Okay, so by bringing him down, you see it's a little bit more of an interesting composition here. And on top of that, the composition itself lends to the dynamics of the grid. Okay. The next thing you want to do is let's work on some of the different pieces that we've got going on here. You've got two focal points. You've got the monster, but you've also got the guy. And so I think the most important one is the guy itself. So I think you've got a good texturing on the jacket, and I'm not going to worry about that. I would definitely go into this this leather hat here, and let's add in some of the darks here. Oops. Go in here, add in some darks. So that shows that the hat is actually forward a little bit more. And let's erase. So something like that. The next thing I would do is let's take, I'm going to use the burn tool, and we're just going to go in here and I'm going to do midtones. And do you see how I'm darkening his feet? With the feet darker, what's happening is, and I'm just going to paint out this here, with the feet darker, now his top of his head is actually coming into view a little bit more. Okay, he's becoming more of a focal point. The other thing that bothers me is kind of the way you've got your arm here. Holding the gun, you're kind of holding it at an awkward angle, and so I would say right off the bat, let's transform that. Oops. Let's escape that out, and let's go here. All right, so we're going to transform this something along the lines of like so, and deselect. Then we go back to here, and let's go in, and again, let's use this burn tool, and we're going to just start pulling some of this out. Let's get a little bit more shades in there, a little bit more contrast where things are. And you can see as you do, he's popping out a little bit more. And let's go in and do the history brush. And let's go back to the last burn tool here. Oops. Nope. Oh, come on here. There we go. Let's do this instead of that. Okay. All right, so now we go into, let's do the history brush, and we can start pulling out some of the aspects that you had in there, and that makes a little bit more sense. Now, with that lying in, I would still go in and I would let's see, darken some of this here to bring out the forehead of this mechanoid right now. All right, and by doing that, by bringing that out, you're now separating the elements a little bit more, because right now what you've got is two separate elements, and they're kind of in this centralized, off-centered location, and it's hard to figure out what's going on. But by putting this guy back here, and even going in and let's go and darken some of the shadows here. And something like that. Oops. Oh, I see what happened. There we go. Let's go back to the midtones. And we're missing some of the pieces on here. So I'm just going to duplicate this layer, and let's merge that down here so I can actually tone some of this out. So by doing that, by toning some of that out, now he becomes a little bit more emphasized as a character. As before, he was kind of this same tonal character as the background. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into adjustments, hue and saturation, and I'm going to lower the second guy just a little bit more. And then we're going to go back into the history brush, and we're going to go back into the history brush, and we are going to go on the hue and saturation, and let's start pulling some of this out now. We don't need to see that. So we can start pulling some of this out from that desaturated value. And that now again emphasizes them a little bit more. Then we're going to go into the dodge here, and I'm going to just kind of bring out some of these highlights here. Just little bits and pieces just to kind of make him pop a little bit more. You've got so much going on here, and what I would also do is set up your lighting on this so that the lighting is a little bit more consistent. Right now you've got kind of an, let me just check what your original lighting is. Right now you've got kind of this foggy kind of mid-tone value, and we can go in here and pop some of this light to kind of give it a little bit of a right face here, if you will. And like so, kind of like this. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to just create a new layer, and we're going to use this green tone that you've got, like so. We don't need that dark, but we're going to go on to multiply, and we are going to start pulling out even a little bit more in the background. I'm going to just go softer. So I'm going to pull out some of this background tone and give me a much more interesting value. And think about cast shadows too. So if I've got a light here, I can, oops, I don't want to go that dark, but I can pull out some of this here and even this in here, and it starts pulling out a little bit more of what I really want to see. I want to see the big forms, and they're not reading very well. So little things like this, let's grab this, now make much more of an interesting tonal value than before. And we can even go in here and add in, let's go new layer, and I'm going to grab some of these highlight marks, and we can add in like some shadow. I just add a bit of eraser here. Let's do this instead. All right. So simple things like this, adding in that color on certain areas, maybe even this has a little bit of a reflection on it because it's tilted a little bit. So we see some of this. Maybe we see this line here, and then maybe under here. So you can see how the shadows are casting and things like that. And those are definitely things that you want to add in. And I'm just going to kind of overlay this. You just want to add in to give you that sense of how that character is being lit. So adding in a little bit more light here pushes that leg out a little bit more and gives me much more interest. Whereas going in here and adding in some of the shadow back here now pulls, and let's do something like that, now pulls a little bit more of that emphasis on where the shadow lies. Let's just kind of clean that up a little bit here. Not so dark, it doesn't need to be. So overall, those little bits and pieces are going to give you more form on your entire piece. All right, so I hope that helps. I didn't want to spend too much time on it, but the difference between the two is from this to this. And that's just by darkening some of the forms and pulling in things and pushing out with light and dark. Okay?